My name is Rachel, and I want to share a story that changed the course of my life forever. It's a story of heartbreak, revelation, and ultimately, liberation. It's not a fairy tale or a dramatized account. It's the raw truth of what it means to walk away from the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, but never truly did. For years, I tried to keep the peace within a family that never accepted me, and more painfully, never embraced my son, Elijah. From the moment he was born, I felt a rift widen between us. I had hoped for celebration and support. Instead, I got sidelong glances, tightly pursed smiles, and words that cut sharper for being so carefully disguised as concern. "You're doing the best you can," they'd say, but the tone always carried an unspoken, "You've made your bed, asterisk." I'd try to ignore it. I told myself they just needed time, that their generation was different, more rigid, that they didn't know how to show love the way I needed it. But over time, those cracks in our relationship became canyons. The judgment wasn't subtle anymore. They made it clear, in more ways than I can count, that they disapproved of my choices, especially my decision to have Elijah without marrying his father. They called it a mistake. They called him a mistake. And that's something I will never forgive. Yet still, I stayed. I showed up to every holiday, every birthday dinner, every forced family reunion. I dressed Elijah in his best clothes, taught him to say please and thank you, to smile when he didn't feel like it, to play the game I had been playing for so long. I wanted him to belong. I wanted us, to belong. I held out hope that one day they would see us for who we truly were. Not a scandal, not a disappointment, but a family just like any other. Christmas was my last hope. I thought maybe, just maybe, the holiday spirit would soften their edges. I imagined my mother giving Elijah a warm hug, my father asking him about school, my siblings letting him help decorate cookies. I fantasized about laughter and connection, the kind you see in movies. I told myself, this time will be different. It wasn't. That Christmas, the coldness was sharper than the winter wind. My sister made a snide remark about Elijah's hair, saying it was unruly. My mother handed out gifts to the other grandchildren with care and enthusiasm, then gave Elijah a pair of socks with the tag still on, as if she had picked them up at the last minute. My father didn't even look at him. The final blow came at dinner when, in front of everyone, my brother joked that Elijah didn't look like he belonged in the family photo. Everyone laughed, everyone but me. I sat there, frozen, my heart pounding. Elijah looked up at me, confusion in his eyes. He didn't understand the layers of what was happening, but he could feel it. He felt the chill, the rejection, the subtle way children know when they are not welcome. And in that moment, something inside me snapped, not in rage, but in clarity. I stood up, took Elijah by the hand, and walked out of that house. No dramatic speeches, no parting shots, just silence. It was the kind of silence that comes when you realize you've been shouting into a void for years. I didn't even close the door behind me. I never imagined that would be the last time I'd see them. I never thought I'd walk away without looking back. But sometimes, you have to reach the end of your rope to realize that you were never truly holding on to anything stable in the first place. This is not a story of bitterness. It's a story of awakening, of finding strength in the most painful of moments, of choosing dignity over tradition, peace over performance, and love, the real kind, over blood. And this is just the beginning. It started off tense. I arrived at my mother's house with Elijah, doing my best to stay hopeful, to hold on to the last shred of optimism I had left. Elijah had chosen his outfit himself, a little green sweater with a snowman on it, his jeans slightly too short but clean, and his hair freshly brushed. He clutched a gift in both hands, a handmade ornament he'd painted for Grandma at school. He was proud. He wanted her to love it, to love him. No one greeted us at the door. The house, usually loud and bustling this time of year, was unnervingly quiet. We stepped inside, the scent of cinnamon and roast turkey in the air, but the warmth that scent should have brought was absent. Instead, I was hit with silence, heavy and cold. I could hear clinking glasses, muffled conversation, and a distant laugh, but no one acknowledged our arrival. I felt their eyes on me as we stepped into the living room, the way they looked through me rather than at me, the way they paused their chatter just long enough to make sure I knew we didn't belong. Still, I smiled. I had learned to wear that smile like armor. I tried to focus on Elijah, on his excitement. "Why don't you go put Grandma's present under the tree?" I whispered to him. He nodded and toddled over, carefully placing his handmade ornament on a low branch. That's when Denise walked in, carrying two large black trash bags in her arms. She made no attempt to hide her contempt. Her heels clicked on the hardwood as she approached, stopping just inches away from me. She dropped the bags at my feet with a dull thud. "You're not family anymore," she said flatly. Her voice was sharp, calculated, like she had rehearsed the line. I blinked, stunned. "What?" "You heard me," she repeated. "We don't want you here." I looked around the room, expecting anyone to intervene. But they all just watched. My mother sat stiffly on the couch, arms crossed, her mouth pulled into a bitter sneer. "That boy is just a reminder of your mistakes," she said, gesturing toward Elijah without even looking at him. "We don't need that around here." My stomach dropped. I looked at Elijah, who had frozen where he stood by the tree, his eyes wide. He didn't understand everything, but he understood enough. The room had gone quiet again, thick with judgment and hate. The ornament he made for her trembled in his little hand. Then my brother Mark chimed in, his voice dripping with cruel amusement. "Watch closely, kid," he said, pointing at me. "That's what failure looks like." It was as if the years of pain and silence suddenly caught fire inside me. All the nights I'd cried quietly so Elijah wouldn't hear. All the holidays I showed up with gifts and hope, only to leave with less of myself. All the times I made excuses for them, gone. Something inside me cracked, but it didn't break me. I didn't yell, I didn't beg. I simply bent down to Elijah's level, took his hand gently in mine, and stood tall. "You don't get to hurt us anymore," I said, looking each of them in the eye. My voice was steady, calm, final. Elijah looked up at me, his eyes searching mine. I smiled at him, this time a real smile, not one born of obligation or fear. "Come on, sweetheart, we're leaving." We walked out into the cold, the door closing behind us with a quiet click. Snow was falling lightly, catching in our hair, sparkling on Elijah's sweater. The wind nipped at our cheeks, but I felt something warm inside me. It was clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't hoping for something that would never come. We were walking into the cold, yes, but we were also walking into freedom, and I was done apologizing for choosing peace over tradition. Back at home, I sat on the couch, the soft hum of the heater filling the quiet. Elijah had fallen asleep with his head in my lap, still wearing his snowman sweater, the one he had been so proud of just hours earlier. His cheeks were flushed from the cold, and a smudge of chocolate from dessert still lingered at the corner of his mouth. I didn't wipe it away. I just let him rest. His breathing was slow, even, safe. The silence in my apartment felt like a balm. It wasn't empty. It was peaceful. A kind of peace I hadn't realized I was craving until I finally stepped away from the noise of forced traditions, biting comments, and hollow connections. I watched the lights from the small Christmas tree we had set up together blink softly in the corner of the room. Our tree, our home. No judgment here, no bitterness, just the two of us. That night, clarity continued to settle into my bones. I knew this couldn't be just an emotional separation. It had to be practical too, permanent, clean. I couldn't leave the door cracked open for them to pull me back in. The next morning, I got to work. First, I logged into the bank account, the joint account I had stupidly shared with my mother years ago, back when I thought helping with family bills would earn me belonging. I transferred every remaining cent of my savings into my private account and scheduled the closure of the joint one. Next, I called the leasing office for my parents' apartment. I had signed as a guarantor when their credit wasn't good enough. Back then, I thought it was what a daughter did. Now, I knew better. I explained the situation to the leasing agent and began the process of removing myself from any financial responsibility. It would be messy, but it had to be done. I called the credit card company and had my name removed from any cards I had once co-signed. I revoked access, closed shared lines, and changed passwords. I combed through every detail of my financial ties to them and severed each one by one. It was both liberating and terrifying. For years, I had been the unacknowledged pillar, holding so much of their life together, paying overdue utility bills, helping with rent, picking up groceries, even covering unexpected medical expenses. They had come to expect it, to feel entitled to it. Rarely was there a thank you, never an apology, just the expectation that I would give and give and give. Now they would have to face the consequences of treating me like an ATM with no feelings. It didn't take long for the messages to start. First, Denise, a cold text demanding to know what I was doing, followed by a voice message dripping with sarcasm and barely masked fury. Then Mark. "So you think you're better than us now?" he wrote. "Don't forget who was there when you were knocked up and scared." And finally, my mother. The longest message of them all, an artful blend of manipulation and guilt. "I can't believe you would do this to asterisk family asterisk at Christmas," she wrote. "You're breaking this family apart." I stared at my phone for a long moment. The words didn't sting like they used to. Instead, I felt detached, observant, as if I were finally seeing clearly after years in a fog. I read them all, slowly, carefully. Then I blocked each number one by one. This wasn't revenge. I wasn't trying to punish them. This was self-preservation. It was choosing peace over chaos, self-worth over obligation, boundaries over blood. And as I looked down at Elijah, still asleep on my lap, I knew I had made the right choice. We weren't alone. We were free. Weeks passed. Life settled into a quiet rhythm, simple, steady, peaceful. Elijah and I spent our evenings reading books, cooking simple meals, and watching cartoons curled up on the couch. The tension I used to carry in my shoulders, the constant hum of anxiety I'd lived with for years, had begun to fade. My body, for the first time in what felt like forever, was learning what calm felt like. Through mutual acquaintances, I started to hear whispers about what was happening with my family. I wasn't looking for updates, but the news found its way to me. Little fragments dropped in casual conversations or mentioned in passing by neighbors who didn't yet know the full story. The landlord had issued an eviction notice. Without my financial backing, the rent had gone unpaid. The utilities were on the verge of being shut off. The joint bank account I'd emptied and closed had caused checks to bounce and overdraft fees to pile up. My brother had lost his job a month earlier and hadn't told anyone. My sister was living beyond her means, relying on the illusion of stability I had helped maintain. And my mother, well, she was no longer able to keep up the facade of control. They tried to reach me again. First, it was calls from unknown numbers. Then came the texts from fake accounts on social media, masked as old friends or anonymous users. When that didn't work, they turned to email, long paragraphs filled with desperation, guilt, rage, and pleas. Each message a different tactic: nostalgia, manipulation, anger, shame. But I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They had made it clear that I wasn't family anymore. Now they were simply experiencing what that actually meant. No more free rides, no more lifelines, no more silent sacrifices from someone they refused to respect. I won't lie. There were moments when it stung. Not because I missed them, but because a small part of me still mourned the asterisk of family. The version I had clung to in my heart for so long. The version where love was unconditional, support was mutual, and belonging didn't come at the cost of your self-worth. But that version had never existed. Not really. And once I let that go, what remained was peace. No more late-night phone calls demanding help. No more veiled insults disguised as advice. No more walking on eggshells to avoid conflict that would only ever be directed at me anyway. I had been the scapegoat for so long, I hadn't realized how much of my identity had been wrapped up in defending myself against people who never truly wanted to understand me. Without them, I felt lighter, freer, like I had finally come up for air after drowning in obligation for years. This was what healing felt like. Not loud, not dramatic, but quiet and steady. It was in the small things: Elijah laughing freely, a full night's sleep, mornings without dread. The fallout was theirs. The freedom was mine. Looking back, I don't regret walking away. What I regret is not doing it sooner. I spent too many years bending, shrinking, and twisting myself into something palatable, something they might finally accept. I thought if I gave more, explained better, forgave faster, they would meet me halfway. But I see now that I was pouring love into a bottomless well, hoping for a reflection that would never come. I tried so hard to earn love that should have been freely given. I was so determined to keep the peace that I forgot I was never the one disturbing it in the first place. I believed that if I just proved myself, by being helpful, selfless, patient, they'd change, that they'd see me. But the truth is, some people don't want to change. Some people are invested in their own version of the story, and mine never fit the role they wanted me to play. So I stopped playing. Now I focus on Elijah, on our life, our rhythm, on mornings filled with laughter instead of anxiety, on days that don't revolve around avoiding emotional landmines. We spend holidays with friends who treat us like family, people who invite us in with no expectations, no judgment, just warmth. Elijah is learning what love looks like when it's healthy. He's surrounded by people who celebrate him for who he is, not who they want him to be. I've started therapy, real, uncomfortable, healing work. I've returned to school part-time, something I had long postponed out of guilt and obligation. And I've begun writing about the pain, about the patterns, about the strength it took to break free and choose something different. I'm not the same woman who walked into that house on Christmas Eve hoping for change. I'm no longer the woman who tiptoed around toxic people just to keep a fragile peace. I'm a mother who knows her worth. A woman who knows silence can be power and distance can be love, especially when it protects your peace. I teach my son to speak kindly, to stand tall, and to never believe that love should hurt. I walked away from my family, but in doing so, I found myself. And this time, I'm not letting go. This story is about more than a ruined Christmas. It's about the quiet, radical courage it takes to walk away from people who harm you, even when they share your blood. It's about the moment you stop trying to earn the love you deserve and start giving that love to yourself. It's about choosing peace over performance, truth over appearances, healing over history. For so long, I believed that being a good daughter meant enduring pain in silence. That family came first, even when that family belittled, dismissed, or emotionally drained me. But real love doesn't demand self-abandonment. Real family doesn't ask you to sacrifice your sense of worth for the sake of keeping the illusion alive. This story is about reclaiming that worth. It's about boundaries, how setting them is not an act of cruelty but of self-respect, how enforcing them is not selfish but necessary. We are often taught that cutting off family is the ultimate betrayal, but what rarely gets acknowledged is how deeply family can betray us, quietly, over time, through dismissive words, judgmental glances, withheld affection, or financial manipulation masked as help. Toxic relationships often hide behind the veil of tradition, obligation, and blood ties. We're told to forgive, forget, and keep showing up, no matter the cost to our mental and emotional health. But none of those things, tradition, guilt, or biology, justify neglect, disrespect, or emotional abuse. My story isn't unique. So many people carry the weight of dysfunctional family dynamics in silence, fearing judgment, loneliness, or backlash. I've learned that silence doesn't heal you, honesty does. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Self-care sometimes means making the hardest decisions, like turning your back on the people who raised you, not out of hatred, but out of necessity. When those people consistently cause harm, choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's survival. This story is a reminder. You don't have to stay somewhere you're not valued, simply because you've always been there. You are allowed to outgrow people, even family. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to demand peace. And if walking away is what it takes to find that peace, then that walk is not weakness, it's strength. When this story began, I was a woman molded by fear and hope in equal parts. I needed their approval like oxygen. I twisted myself into shapes that didn't feel natural, constantly seeking acceptance that was always just out of reach. I thought if I could love hard enough, give generously enough, forgive endlessly enough, I could hold my fractured family together. I became the peacemaker, the fixer, the forgiver. I silenced myself to keep others comfortable. I made excuses for their cruelty and swallowed their disapproval, believing it was somehow my fault, something I had to atone for. I was afraid to rock the boat because I feared I'd be cast overboard entirely. But that confrontation on Christmas shattered the illusion I had clung to for so long. It forced me to see the truth, not just about them, but about myself. I didn't break that day. I woke up. I evolved from a people pleaser into a boundary setter, from a woman who suffered in silence into one who speaks with clarity and conviction. I stopped apologizing for existing. I stopped asking for permission to be loved. I stopped explaining myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. Now, I stand taller, not because I've become someone new, but because I finally stopped hiding the person I was always meant to be. Elijah, too, is changing. He may not grasp every detail, but he understands the energy of safety, of love without strings. He's learning that real love doesn't criticize or control. He sees a mother who walks away when she is mistreated, not because she is angry, but because she values herself. And through that, he's learning that he too is worthy, without condition, without performance, simply because he exists. As for my family, their downfall wasn't my doing. It was the result of years of taking without giving, demanding without gratitude, and mistaking silence for consent. When I finally withdrew, the fragile structure they leaned on collapsed, not because I destroyed it, but because I was the only one holding it up. Their actions revealed who they truly were, and my actions revealed who I am becoming. Stronger, clearer, wiser, freer. I am not who I was at the start of this journey, and I'm never going back. If you find yourself in a situation like mine, questioning your place within your own family, walking on eggshells to avoid conflict, or constantly sacrificing your well-being just to feel included, please hear me when I say this. You are not alone. There are so many of us out here, quietly surviving the pain that no one wants to talk about. The pain that's often dismissed because they're still your family, but titles don't grant people the right to mistreat you. Love doesn't justify cruelty, and loyalty should never cost you your peace. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's necessary, and it takes courage, so much more than people realize. Walking away isn't just about closing a door. It's about facing all the fears that live behind it. The fear of being alone, of being judged, of feeling like you've failed. But here's the truth. Staying in toxic patterns isn't loyalty. It's a form of slow self-destruction. And the moment you choose to break that cycle, you are not weak. You are powerful. You are rewriting the story not just for yourself, but for anyone who comes after you. Your peace is worth protecting. Your happiness is not a luxury, it's a right. Your voice deserves to be heard, especially in spaces where it's been silenced. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by love, respect, safety, and reciprocity. Elijah and I may have fewer people in our lives now, but what we have is real. The love we share is rooted in truth. Our circle may be small, but it is sacred. We laugh louder, breathe deeper, and love more freely than we ever did surrounded by people who treated us like burdens. Since walking away, I've learned that healing doesn't always look like joy. Sometimes it looks like silence, solitude, or stillness. But within that stillness, I found clarity. And within that clarity, I found myself. I don't know what your version of this story looks like. Maybe you're still in the middle of it. Maybe you haven't reached your Christmas confrontation yet. Maybe you're waiting for the moment when it becomes undeniable that staying is doing more harm than good. If or when that moment comes, I want you to know this. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to let go, not in anger, but in love for yourself. It's okay to choose peace, even if it means choosing a different path from the people who raised you. It's okay to start over. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the permission to let go to stop surviving and start living. And when you do, you'll find you were never really alone. You were just finally coming home to yourself.